Hey folks, I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and today I'm going to review a gritty urban horror adventure, The Night Mother's Moon for Call of Cthulhu. In The Night Mother's Moon, the investigators are all homeless individuals living on the rough streets of New York City. When one of their own turns up horrifically murdered, they soon discover that there's something unnatural stalking the homeless people in the city. What follows is a gritty urban adventure that takes the PCs into the darkest parts of the city. Does The Night Mother's Moon's focus on urban survival and poverty and horror make it an interesting one-shot adventure compared to the more typical Call of Cthulhu adventures? Well, grab your subway tokens and get ready for some spoilers, because not only am I going to give you a full review of The Night Mother's Moon, but I'm going to give you keepers some tips and tricks on how to run this one like a pro. The Night Mother's Moon was written by Christian Grundle and was published through Stygian Fox. The adventure clocks in at about 16 pages and can likely be finished in one session. Although, like most investigative adventures, the pace of this one just really depends on your players and how quickly they like to jump from clue to clue. The adventure casts the PCs as downtrodden, homeless individuals living on the streets of Manhattan. I'll say right away that I find this choice problematic, especially since this aspect isn't really key to the adventure, but I'll talk about that more at the end of the video when I sum up my thoughts. The adventure kicks off when the PCs discover that a homeless woman, Claire, has been murdered in an alley the night before. And horrifically murdered. Her body is found unnaturally desiccated and shriveled up, kind of like an old mummy. Another woman, Roxy, witnessed this attack and is severely disturbed by it. She's barely able to describe what happened, but she does say that she saw an ominous figure with no eyes approach Claire the night before, and then she heard this horrible, inhuman laughter as the attack occurred. Chatting with some of the other folks that live on the streets in the area, the PCs will uncover rumors about Claire, the most prominent being that she owed money to a vicious local gang, the Chochos, and that a guy named Crazy George also owes money to that same gang, and the gang is on the hunt for him, but nobody can find him. Crazy George, as it turns out, used to be a reporter who specialized in crime and the occult, and who, like most Call of Cthulhu characters, eventually uncovered enough secrets about the mythos that he lost all of his sanity points and went completely insane. Crazy George is tough to find, but he's the PC's only real lead into what happened. And so with some more investigation, like checking out Crazy George's rumored haunts or interviewing some folks at some various soup kitchens where he's been seen to frequent, the PCs will track down two of Crazy George's friends, Little Dave and Jumper, these two street musicians who care a lot about Crazy George and know kind of where he's hiding out. I like that this part of the adventure is open-ended, like the PCs have to find Crazy George, and there's lots of different ways and NPCs they can interact with to eventually track him down. The GM may need to do a little bit of work here to prevent the PCs from getting stuck. Like when I played this adventure, we were hanging out at the restaurant where Claire was last seen to have eaten, and we kind of went down this rabbit hole, but the GM did a good job of kind of leading us back on the trail of Crazy George. So I like that there's a few ways that the PCs can kind of navigate their way to this next part of the adventure. Soon, the PCs will track down Crazy George in an abandoned subway station, one of those cool Art Deco stations that hasn't been used in decades and decades but is still there. Well, gaining access to this old station takes some cleverness. The PCs can only enter it from a basement of a nearby building or through some steam tunnels, although I couldn't really figure out why the PCs just can't walk there from a nearby open subway stop. I mean, all those subway stations are connected, and players always seem to think about this as the first option, but it actually doesn't matter. GMs can think of whatever works here and just get the players to that station. But just as the PCs enter the station looking for Crazy George, two very angry members of the Chocho gang are also there. Armed and dangerous, these angry gang members are determined to capture George. These guys are vicious threats to the PCs, and this is a cool location in the subway station for a confrontation. When I played in this adventure, we were all unarmed, and subway trains were zipping past, and about half of us got severely wounded, like trying to stop these guys from getting George. We were trying to use all kind of tricks, and they just weren't working. But fortunately for the PCs here, George actually knows a magic spell that he can use to fend off the gang, just in case things go really wrong. I don't love that George can save the day all by himself with magic. It really kind of comes out of the blue, but it's an okay option because the types of characters the players are going to be playing in this adventure probably won't be armed and dangerous and be much of a match for two vicious gang members.
What? I don't understand what's wrong with a little Hayukin!
Once the PCs have defeated the two Chochos and earned Crazy George's trust, he explains what is going on here. The Chochos, it seemed, worshipped an aspect of Shub-Niggurath, that's this Cthulhu-like god, and she was named the Night Mother. And every time the moon was right, the Chochos would sacrifice somebody to the Night Mother, and usually it was like a local rival gang member or something like that. And in exchange, the Night Mother would offer her protection over the gang. But the Chochos, including the priestess who knew how to manipulate the Night Mother, were recently busted in a police crackdown, and they were mostly all sent to prison. As a result, when the Night Mother appeared, there was nobody there to give her a sacrifice, and she ended up butchering all but the two Chochos and just going berserk, and now she's wandering the streets on nights of the full moon looking for blood. Now, Crazy George witnessed this whole thing, the Night Mother appearing and the Chochos getting all slaughtered, but he was able to fend her off with a little bit of the occult knowledge that he had gotten back when he was a reporter. And now the surviving gang members, these two Chochos, have been looking for Crazy George, hoping that he can help them retake control of the Night Mother. So Crazy George, now he knows how to banish the Night Mother, but naturally he needs the PC's help to perform a ritual which has to take place back at the Chocho's lair where the Night Mother manifests every 30 days. So the PCs now have to head back to the Chocho's hideout where the Night Mother is going to appear and perform a ceremony to get rid of her. The Chocho's hideout is located in an old apartment building where the unnatural magic of the Night Mother, because she's manifested there so much, has turned many of its tenants into these eyeless zombie-like minions. So as George performs the banishing ceremony, the PCs have to fend off these weird creatures. And in the final moments of this adventure, the Night Mother herself manifests. She kind of looks like the girl from The Ring. Her hair's all draped weirdly, and she's got no eyes. And boy, is she a tough cookie. She's resistant to most physical damage. She's able to mind control investigators. Oh, and she can turn them into shriveled husks with just a glance. In my experience, only a couple of investigators are going to survive this final encounter. But since this adventure is designed as a horror one-shot, that's probably just fine. And that's the entirety of The Night Mother's Moon. It's a pretty straightforward adventure. So what do I think? Well, first, let's talk about the things that I really did like. I thought that The Night Mother's Moon has a good combination of adventure elements. There's exploration, investigation, and action, kind of all in equal parts. There's fun role-playing interactions, and a lot of the NPCs have really strong personalities that are really fun to GM and for players to interact with. I also like that the adventure starts with a very clear mystery. Who or what killed Claire in such a horrible way? And then it segues into an open-ended middle where players have a lot of agency to explore the city and follow the clues to find Crazy George. And then the ending is strong with the final ceremony featuring a really tough original monster, these zombie minions, and cool atmospheric touches as the ritual's underway. So there's a lot for players to juggle to get everything right in that final climax. The adventure is also really well produced. There's evocative art. Some of it's a little M-rated, be aware of that, but really good, well-illustrated maps, and it's also really easy to read and pull out the key details of the adventure from the writing. Well done. But I do have some core issues with this adventure. First, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I really don't like how all of the PCs are meant to be homeless people. First, this is a really sensitive topic. The homelessness problem, especially in the US, is a real issue, rife with mental health challenges, substance abuse, and economic issues. And while experienced role players might be able to take on these roles with finesse, I've been in groups in this adventure where the role-playing veered into or really close to offensive stereotyping. And while the author is trying to be sensitive about this topic, the adventure even tells GMs outright that the adventure should make the players think about earning their next meal and panhandling during the adventure, which to me starts feeling kind of icky and really just off topic from what should be a horror adventure. And the PCs as a homeless people actually gets in the way of the investigation that's meant to happen in this adventure. There's a core question in every Call of Cthulhu adventure, which is, why is my character here and doing this? And usually there's a personal connection, maybe to a friend that needs help. Like all Call of Cthulhu adventures start with a letter from somebody asking for help. Or the players are just thrust into an unsuspecting situation. Or the players are journalists or academics whose job it is to uncover the truth. But here, if the players are homeless people, there's really none of those motivations. No one knows dead Claire at the beginning of the adventure, and if somebody in real life turns up dead in an alley, especially a death that's tied to a notorious drug gang, no one who's living on the streets, much less an average person, is going to form a posse and start an investigation. They're probably just going to ignore it, let the cops handle it, or move across town to a safer area. When I played this adventure, I kept asking myself why my PC, who has a lot of problems of their own, would keep following these obscure clues into a dangerous occult mystery with some soul-sucking monster. There was just always a feeling of dissonance that never goes away when your characters are just kind of random street people. And finally, there's just literally no reason for the PCs to be homeless in this adventure. Literally nothing about this adventure revolves around it. If you're going to run the Night Mother's Moon, just make the PCs a mixed group of people who might actually care about a random death on the streets. For example, a team of social workers, a journalist, a beat cop, and maybe one homeless person who just really cared about that victim and has a lot of willingness to help and keep the streets safe. It makes way more sense for that mixed kind of group to go off on an investigation to solve Claire's death. And it gives individual characters more of a chance to shine. The cop is going to know more about the chochos and why they're dangerous and how the bust went down. The social worker is going to be able to navigate the soup kitchens and maybe deal a little better with Crazy George. The journalist has a real motivation for uncovering a great story. And the personal connection with maybe that one person who is homeless to Claire makes it gives them real motivation to kind of find out who might have killed their friend. That's going to work way better than just making them a bunch of people who are just living in a shelter out in the streets near where this murder took place. My next issue with this adventure is Crazy George. Once the players meet Crazy George, he kind of just takes over the adventure and becomes the central point of everything that happens afterwards. He has magic, he knows all about the Night Mother, he was there, he was the witness who knows what she can do and how it all went down, and only he knows the ritual that could banish her. The last part of the adventure just turns into the PCs watching Crazy George do all this cool stuff. He stops the chochos with his spell, he unravels the mystery, and he saves the day. It's so frustrating when the ending revolves around a single NPC. Oh, and even though he's supposed to be crazy, he seems remarkably lucid. He's explaining all this very methodically to the players.
Hey yo, I'm Crazy George and
All right, listen very carefully. We're facing the Night Mother, an aspect of Shub-Niggurath. Fortunately, I know magic. And I also know the exact ritual that we're going to have to use to stop her. Listen carefully. These instructions I'm about to give you are very precise. When I played this for the first time before I ran it, It felt like I was adventuring more with an X-Man versus someone who went insane from a Lovecraftian deity. Fortunately, this is easy to fix. Just kill George off right away.
Wait, what?
I mean that. Kill him off. So when the players find George, he should roughly describe to them the ceremony they have to do to banish the Night Mother. Like, make it a little simpler than what the adventure says, but make George's description like a little vague. He's kind of crazy. He's got all this knowledge in his head. Like, oh, you're gonna need 7 candles. Oh wait, no, it's 9 candles, and one of them's got to be black. And then we gotta put them in a pattern that's a circle but not a circle. Like, give them that kind of information so that they kind of loosely get it but don't fully get it. And then when the players get to the Cho-Cho hideout, have one of those zombies just like burst through the wall at just the right time and horribly kill George off. Or have him actually go insane, and when he gets there, he loses it and decides he's going to swear allegiance to the Night Mother at the last minute. Either way, put that final ceremony in the hands of the players, where they're a little bit unsure what to do and they're over their heads, but they should be the ones that save the day at the end, not George. Finally, I wish that there was a little more backstory with the Night Mother. I mean, the adventure sets up that she kills somebody once a month, but there's 500 murders a year in New York City, so it actually doesn't seem that threatening, which is a horrible thing to say, but it's true. And the Cho-Chos were clearly using the Night Mother to protect their gang, but like, how did that work exactly? Like, did she have some kind of magical blessing? I mean, it had to be powerful enough so these last 2 survivors of the Cho-Chos were like desperate and would risk their lives to take back control of her. But yet, her protection didn't help the gang avoid like a police crackdown. So it's all a little confusing. In my headcanon, the Night Mother acted like a powerful assassin, and when controlled, once a month, she could target the gang's enemies with like perfect, undetectable precision. And maybe the Cho-Chos got cocky. Like, at first they used her to just take out rival gang members, but then they realized they could move up the ladder, and maybe they targeted like a district attorney who was after them. And then when he died a horrible death, something that the PCs can discover on early on in the adventure, like from one of the cops as he's looking at the body of Claire.
Yep, this one's an ugly one. Turns out my second time this year seeing something like this too. Yeah, you remember DA Penn Daly? Oh, strong law and order kind of guy, cleaned up the city. Loved him, but he turned up dead just like this. Yeah, he was all like shriveled like a prune. Ugh, disgusting. Coroner says it's probably some kind of Russian poison. Well, I don't know. Not how I want to go.
And with the DA dead and enough clues that the Cho-Chos were involved, the police retaliated, which led to the Cho-Chos getting busted and the priestess getting locked up and them losing control of the Night Mother. And while none of this backstory is like that critical to the adventure, it adds a nice touch to the end of the adventure. Like, the PCs might see photos in the Cho-Cho's lair of the DA and realize that he was targeted. And then they'll know the Cho-Chos were like moving their way up and able to hit like really important people in the city, which makes getting rid of the Night Mother and making sure the Cho-Chos or nobody else gets control of her that much more important. And by the way, if you're interested, I created 2 handouts about this whole like DA murder that you can download off of my website, oneshotadventures.com, if you want to use that to give some more clues to the players about how the Cho-Chos were using the Night Mother. So in the end, I like this adventure, but I do think it needs some adjustments to run really well. Make the party a mixed group of investigators, don't overly rely on Crazy George, and make it a little bit more clear why the Night Mother needs to get banished. If you enjoyed this review and would like to see more videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you've played in this adventure or run it, I'd love to know how it went for you. Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, I'm JC, and just remember, if your gang is worshiping an evil Cthulhu deity and you get busted by the police, remember to pay the bail of the High Priestess first. It's the only way to make sure that you'll live to see the next day.